بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Being Easter, it is appropriate for us to remind ourselves of the sentiments that accompany Easter and the great sacrifice that is associated with Hazrat Isa sallallahu alayhi, the Spirit of God. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a very revered position to Isa within the Quran and almost always speaks with a lot of reverence of Isa, apart from his miraculous birth and the fact that Mary's mother sallallahu alayhi makes a prayer that, O Lord, keep her and her offsprings from the touch of the devil, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts this prayer that she and her son are immune from any type of corruption. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you look at the Quran, He speaks with a lot of respect about Isa. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَيَّدْنَاهُ بِرُوحِ الْقُدُسِ. In several places, we gave Isa, the son of Mary, many demonstrations and proofs, and we assisted him with the Holy Spirit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveres Isa. And on the other hand, when He talks about Isa, you find the conversations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is having with Isa are direct conversations. So He has a very esteemed position with Allah. And in terms of Isa, what we see is that he was a prophet of clemency, mercy, gentleness, of a lot of love and forgiveness. And he is that prophet who shows how to actually lead a life for the other, to care for others, to be gentle within your soul, and to tap in that type of sentiment within ourselves and to associate with Allah in that way. When Imam Sadiq was approached and he was asked whose way was the better way, Yahya, who lived in the awe of God, or Isa, who existed in the love of God, the sixth Imam, when he was pressed for an answer, he said the way of Isa is superior to live to the love of God and mercy of God, as opposed to the awe of God, if you have to choose one or the other. In our hadith, the literature states that whenever Isa would pass upon barren land, he would begin to produce plants. He was that sort of a merciful soul. What we need in this world right now is that sentiment of Isa, of living for the other, caring for the other, wanting better for the other. And Isa's motivation in wanting good for the other was not for the sake of him having made that decision through the understanding that the success of my individual self is reliant upon the success of the whole community. He was helplessly in love with the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is exactly what we need. That we need to spend a life in which we prefer the other over us. When we eat, we think of those who are hungry. When others commit crime, instead of chastising them, to maybe forgive them and to reform them through forgiveness. Today, we have the whole idea, instead of retributive justice, to make reparation, yes, and reform the individual. So today, whereas people do wrong to each other, as opposed to retribution and being punished, there's another idea that is coming through, that we make that person accountable for the crime that they've committed, and in return do good to the person that they have wronged. And we are finding that that brings about reforming that individual and slowly reforms the whole of the community and the human society. It's a very easy concept, and we will actually be saying that it's so obvious that we live by this principle. If one of us has a few children, at the level of siblings, maybe we can't see it, or at the level of community, but when we have a few children, we will see that if two of them fight and if one of them is unduly unjust to the other and transgressive, we will find that as opposed to meting out justice and creating further animosity and difference and separation between the two, if we can bring the transgressive one to a realization that they have transgressed, and for them to feel remorse at that and make reparation, we will find that that constitutes a far better and a harmonious family that we desire, and that result may not be gotten through upholding the firm notion of justice. This is what we need to remind ourselves of, that we need to care for the other. There are different ways to bring out the best within other people, and one of the most potent ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself uses in the Quran is the touch of mercy, clemency, gentleness, and love. The Prophet's success was not due to combating those who are seen as his opponents with the blade. Their success was that they were able to touch the human godly side of the other. You see, the Prophet of Islam came to a group of people who were worse than the modern day ISIS, if you were to make an analogy. And he converted those monsters into fine human beings because he realized that they need care. They need nurturing. They need acceptance in the way in which they are. And for somebody to then work on their souls gently. And that is why Imam Ali sallallahu alayhi says about the Prophet, Tabibun Lawar bil Tibbigi. He was a physician that would go around curing the hearts. This is what Isa amongst the prophets exemplifies, bringing about reform through the touch of love and mercy. And this is what is so needed in this world of ours at present. We need to be merciful to ourselves, forgive ourselves, let go. Give ourselves a new lease of life. We need to forgive others. We need to be kind to the others. We need to be altruistic and care for the others. So even if Isa, according to the Muslim literature, did not ascend upon the crucifix, we know for a fact that had that opportunity come, he would have done so unhesitatingly for his care for the other. So for me, it's very immaterial whether he was put on that cross or not. He had that sentiment through which he would go onto that cross in any case if it meant redeeming the other. And that is what the parent does exactly. The parent normally bears the burdens of the crimes of their children willingly in order for their children to live in safety and comfort, and in order for their children to be forgiven. And I think every parent does this. We all have this parental instinct to take on the punishment of our children so that they do not have to face. So we look at this example in itself. And all the prophets were parents in the rightest sense. And no more than the final prophet and Isa sallallahu alayhi wa. If you look at the example of the final prophet in which he says to the angel of death, that if this is the pain that is to come upon anybody who dies, then give me the sum total of the pain that are to be felt by every individual in my ummah, so that none after me will go through this pain of the extraction of their soul. So the prophets are parental. And this is what Isa signifies, this beautiful parental love for those around him. And he says, "Oh Lord, if I can be a sacrifice for them to be redeemed, then that is a worthy cause for me. We find the same sentiment in Imam Hussein on the plains of Karbala. The same sentiment, that same care for the other, crying at the fate of those who are killing him, and loving those that follow him. So, and with this, what we need in today's world is a reminder of the example of Isa, the son of Mary. He is that point for the global Abrahamic community, barring, of course, our Jewish brothers and cousins. The two main religions, Islam and Christianity, both converge on this great person. Maybe the interfaith community can use his noble example and bring back that sentiment of human godliness. With that, let us pray Surah Fatiha for our beloved Al-Mu'min who have gone before us, and for the poor souls who are in crisis within the Middle East and elsewhere in the suffering due to war and civil strife or due to famine. For Allah to relieve them of their hardship. Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.